Hey, Southern Nevada, let's talk about your tap water. Despite its hard, mineral-rich taste, your water surpasses drinking standards, so don't confuse hard water with its quality. Sourced from the Rocky Mountains, your water is analyzed more than 328,000 times a year and treated and monitored 24/7 by a team of technical experts. Learn more about the testing of your water at snwa.com. SNWA is a not-for-profit water agency.
Last month, the Southern Nevada Health District confirmed an active case of measles at one of the biggest conventions of the year. And look, we're all okay. There was no outbreak, but it got us thinking, could Las Vegas be the epicenter of the world's next pandemic? Today on CityCast Las Vegas, we talk with Jeff Quinn. He's the Public Health Preparedness Officer at the Health District, and we ask what lessons Las Vegas has learned in the 6 years since COVID-19 shut our city down. It's Monday, April 13th. I'm Sonja Cho Swanson, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. So what happens when you first hear about a case like this? Like, what are the steps that Southern Nevada Health District takes?
Well, we kind of rely on our previous experience with measles cases in the past. We've had, over the years, cases that have appeared not just convention, but maybe a resort property, or when we get reports through laboratory testing that they've confirmed a measles case. Our disease investigator team does a really good job of doing contact tracing for that particular case.
Can I just say, sorry, real quick, disease investigator team sounds like a really cool TV show. I'm envisioning they have special vests on. They're like the coolest nerds in town.
They really are. They're kind of the backbone. This is our bread and butter here at the Health District. So they really are a vital role to preventing the spread of disease in our community. So they're the front line, tip of the spear that really gets out there and gets information to help us make better informed decision-making here at the district. Our disease investigator team also has notification systems where they can blast it out across the country. So really, if another case shows up in another state, they can look through the notification system right there and see that there was a case at this, which will lead their disease investigators in those jurisdictions to ask the travel history question. Did you attend this conference in Las Vegas between these dates? It just gives them better information on where they might have contracted measles.
Okay, so once the investigator team is out there and they're drawing the lines, I'm imagining the pin board on the wall here with all the strings attaching everything, right? I'm sure you're a little more high tech than that. What happens next?
Well, as far as our case that we had here, for me in the Office of Public Health Preparedness, really we focus on our emergency operation plans. Any training that we've done previously with community partners, for example, of interest would be particular if the resident population that here's in Las Vegas, that we start to see an increase in cases locally. Oftentimes it might be focused at a location such as our public schools or our charter schools, a location like that. Children, that are unvaccinated or undervaccinated really are susceptible, and they're in a confined space where, a highly infectious disease like measles has the ability to spread more. So,
And Jeff, if I can just say, I'm the mother of a toddler, and the hands go in the mouth, they go in the nose, they go in the eyes, and they're just touching each other. It is a high spread environment. I've seen it happen firsthand.
It is. And so, if I rewind to last year, right before the end of school season, is when we started seeing outbreaks in neighboring states. So Utah, there was cases in Texas, New Mexico. And so really working with our school district personnel, we were able to conduct an exercise, train staff, exercise in advance of actually getting our first case of measles. Knock on wood, we haven't experienced that at the school, but we were prepared to do a dry run for measles should a positive case come back in our student population or in the teacher administrative staff for the school district. So really we did a dry run exercise to test the process so that everybody would be well informed on what to do in those cases. And then they got to experience the disease investigators actually doing the interview with them to see what types of questions they ask. This is really an opportunity. When we get a case, we know that whatever's circulating out there is present, and it allows us time to prepare to have the best possible outcome or result.
So I'm curious, why do you think that this one case of measles at the convention center didn't turn into an epidemic?
There could be a wide number of factors. I mean, at a conference like Las Vegas Convention Visitor Authority, it's a very large space. So really, and then your interactions that you have with people might not be sustained interactions. So it's difficult to say, there are conditions that are more conducive to the spread of measles. Somebody's home that is a more smaller confined space where the interactions with people occur much more frequent, you have greater chance of spreading that disease among family members that are non-vaccinated or under-vaccinated.
And I wonder too if, a large number of the attendees, since they're most likely to be adults, had already been vaccinated for, measles to begin with, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. So for them, if you've been vaccinated, that you've received the mumps, measles, rubella, the worries should be less.
I guess I wanted to highlight one of our city's unique public health vulnerabilities. We have a lot of visitors coming in and out from all over the world. And when they come here, they're here to shake hands. They're here to sing karaoke. They're here to, exchange some saliva. And many times they're gone before they even realize they were infectious for whatever it is, right? So how does the Southern Nevada Health District plan around that unique aspect of our city's kind of hospitality industry?
It's a great question, really. And it's one of the factors that we plan for annually. Now, from my office, working with emergency managers, working with state health, working with a lot of individuals, we conduct annually what's called the threat hazard identification risk assessment. That basically takes the threats and hazards we're likely to encounter here in Southern Nevada, and we assign risk and we assign numbers to them. A biological event, such as it could be naturally occurring like measles that is circulating the world, or it could be a man-made like a terrorist type threat, a biological agent. We have to be able to prepare for those threats and be able to build some capacity to respond here locally. So the way we do this is through this THIRA is what it's called. We identify risk, the magnitude, the likelihood of it occurring, and then what the potential impacts might be, so that we can better plan. We either can write additional emergency operations plans. We use it as a basis for planning for community drills and exercises. We might do exercises with parts of our community. It might be our resort property partners. It might be the healthcare system.
Or the school district.
It might be EMS, pre-advance. It might be school districts. It might be businesses, or it might be just the general public like we saw during COVID. We have to be able to prepare the public, how they'll get the information, and then how they'll receive those instructions, either directing them to a location where they could be tested if testing is available, or receive a vaccination if that's the mitigation outcome strategy.
So you said you put together this list, this THIRA, every year. What's at the top of your list for 2026? What are the threats that you're most concerned about for this year?
Yeah, we have a lot of them that are there. Wildland fires are high in the desert when we're experiencing drought. Drought might be one of the ones. Biological, if we come back to the biological, it is usually in the top 10. Not only because we have past most recent history with COVID, where we see anything that's circulating in the world really has the ability to be within our doorsteps because of international travel. We have 2.3 million people here. We have, visitors of 300,000 coming up from California and other locations driving here on any given Friday, Saturday night. Really, it's an opportunity to introduce a virus that's circulating in the world in our population here. Where the THIRA and hazard vulnerability assessments become, translate into action is that generally we'll write a written plan, a response plan for those top hazards. From that written plan, we'll use that as a basis for planning a scenario that's a community-wide drill or exercise. And then we'll get the players, all the response partners together, and then simulate that response to that. It gives us an opportunity to fix any gaps that we might have, but also it gives us an opportunity to play with how we'll communicate with each other, how we'll share information, and how we'll coordinate our response so that it's really a seamless response when it occurs.
Yeah. So when it comes to your pandemic protocol, then I'm thinking about, you've mentioned so far the solutions you look at are contact tracing. You've mentioned drills and plans. Are there any other tools in your toolkit, maybe some unique ones to Las Vegas, that you have to deploy in case of a pandemic?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a plethora of tools at our disposal to act depending on the situation and what we're faced with. Now, if I can go back to COVID, one of the positives that one of the differences, a lot of our response plans identified public schools as a location, a gymnasium to provide either testing or vaccination. And even though we had done throughput exercises to see what volume of people we could get through in a certain period of time, it really was not conducive during COVID. It wasn't optimal for getting large numbers of people. And so really leveraging some of our partnerships with the Convention Authority and Visitor Authority and using the convention center as a large space, we could create more lanes to get a higher number of people through quicker there. Also, we tested out prior to COVID the use of parking structures at some of our casinos here in town. And
interesting.
We had some abandoned or closed casinos during COVID but we still had the parking structures. It was conducive to providing either testing or vaccination during extreme temperature months. So we were still, testing June, July, August. It's hot outside. And we used the shade from those parking structures really to get, the population vaccinated or tested from them just sitting in their air-conditioned car.
That's
it created
so smart. The drive up,
social
testing.
distancing necessary, but really made it a much more seamless opportunity.
Man, Vegas loves the drive-through, right? Is that a...
It was,
right
we were, you're always concerned for worker safety. Our health district staff or the fire personnel or EMS that were out there, of them getting run over by cars, them breathing fumes from exhaust. But in this situation, the openness of these parking garages really allowed us to dissipate some of those hazards and safely and comfortably, respond to the need of providing that service to the public.
So you mentioned these venues for testing and vaccination. Were there any other lessons learned from COVID-19?
Yes, we had lots of good lessons learned. One of the challenges that we'll face is that over time, we start to lose a lot of the experienced workforce, the public health workforce that responded during COVID, either to retirement or they leave the state or they leave service for the various response organizations. And then we lose that capacity, that experience and that knowledge of people familiar with that because, for future threats, that was kind of a tested response strategy. That's one that will be sustained and employed for the next emergency that we have. That's a biological where we actually, if we have tests available to test the population, or if we have, a medical countermeasure like vaccines or pills, we'll use that as a model for how we will respond in the future.
The Las Vegas Academy of the Arts, or LVA, is a 12-time Grammy Award-winning high school, the most of any high school in the nation. And the LVA Music Conservatory faculty are performing in a special fundraising concert on Monday, April 20th at 6 p.m. in the Loudon Theater. Mark your calendars. The goal is to raise $50,000 for a 9-foot Steinway Model D concert grand piano. Their existing concert piano is beyond repair, and this opportunity is due to a partnership with Southern Nevada Music. There are multiple ways to support. You can attend the concert, you can donate, there's even a silent auction, and you don't have to actually go to the concert to donate or participate in the silent auction. There's some very cool things you can bid on, including a live vocal caroling event. You can get the mariachi band to come perform for you, get a jazz song dedication. What a great gift. And my personal favorite, you could actually, on stage, guest conduct one of their orchestra performances. So visit www.lasvegasacademy.net to purchase tickets, donate, access the silent auction, and support LVA students. Every ticket, donation, and bid brings us one step closer to giving these talented students the instruments they deserve. You know, it's been 6 years now, almost to the day that Las Vegas shut down. I remember that day, actually. I went out with a friend to I think they called it the last call. All the bartenders who knew that they were, getting furloughed went out downtown, and we kind of got to party with them. And it really just felt like the end of the world. One bartender actually turned to me and said, "It's the end of the world." So I would say the shutdown arguably saved thousands of lives, right? We were not exposing each other to infectious disease.
Right.
But there were also impacts to our city, like economically and socially, which, also have these public health ripple effects, right? Like overdose deaths shot up. There was less access to preventative care. Maybe fewer people got cancer screenings, for example. So does the public health response to another pandemic maybe take all this into account as well?
Yeah, it will. And really, the population's ability to receive information. And one of the challenges we have now, being so close to the COVID response, that was a really long-term sustained response. Whereas, other disaster and threats we face really is a short period of time from the time we respond to the emergency. Then we're in the recovery phase.
Like a wildfire or something, for example.
Really, it's quick and it's done and it's over with and you're on to the next thing. The trouble and the challenge that we had during COVID is it went on. I mean, it started with, not having any laboratory tests for COVID, receiving the test, performing the test, and then it allowed time for the federal government and our public health system to come up with a vaccine, receiving the vaccine, administering the vaccine, and going through that process. That was a long duration response. Now, being a few years out post-COVID, it makes it really challenging to do the drills and exercises that we did prior to COVID. Like if we wanted to do, a vaccination exercise, it makes it much more challenging, not only for
Why is that?
The responders, burnout. We during COVID, because it was a sustained response emergency, a lot of people were like, we've been there, done that. They might not see the value in responding there, but really our mission and our goal here in preparedness at the health district is really to keep it on the forefront, because disasters, emergencies, diseases that are circulating in the world, they really don't care if you're tired or not. So they really have the ability to be introduced to our community and create a problem 24/7, 365 days a year, So we still have to have a workforce that's capable and prepared enough to mount a response to those threats.
Well, how do you address that burnout? Because I remember seeing videos of these, healthcare workers who had been, some of them had like bruises on their face from wearing these like intense masks for so many hours of the day. How do you address that burnout?
Well, I think each of our own individual agencies or as a community, really, we work with strategies to relieve staff, to identify more staff and cross-train staff. So there's what we call depth on the bench, that really we have enough people that can perform certain jobs and be able to more timely relieve staff that are experiencing the stress of a response. I think some of the post-disaster, post-emergency debrief communication support is very good. We have a lot of resources here in Southern Nevada that are really of benefit to us. The Las Vegas Resiliency Center is integral to emergency response here in Southern Nevada. It provides peer-to-peer support, counseling. There's lots of activities, but, ensuring that our staff have sustained rest periods can do wonders. So really that is ingrained. Everybody's a safety officer during an emergency. And really we train each other to look out for each other, look for the signs and symptoms of stress and fatigue and burnout, and then really, take an active step to remove that person from the situation before it becomes really bad.
Yeah. One last thing I want to ask about COVID, and this is something that I think surprised me at the time, was how quickly masks became so controversial. Wearing a mask was something that I think some people, some parts of the population were very eager to do and very active. And then other parts of the population really were resistant to it, right? And did that surprise you about masking? And do you think your response to masking at the health district will be different going forward?
I don't think our response will be different. I mean, really what we saw is that masks did provide protection.
That's the science. But then again, there's the people who chose not to believe the science, right? There's a lot of resistance to mask mandates.
And it's going to be really difficult to change that. But in the future, masks worked. So, I mean, if people say, no, he didn't, well, you don't have any proof to cite. My personal experience of being out in testing centers or the vaccination centers, when you know that half the people there are infected, I'd never contracted COVID during COVID. So I attribute that to the personal protective equipment that I was provided and that I wore. And for me personally, personal protective equipment is very important measure that we have. Now, supply shortages that we experienced during COVID will occur again. Right now, some of the strategy is for jurisdictions and agencies to stockpile N95 respirators to ensure that those individuals are fit tested to wear that particular model of respirator. But the challenge is it has a shelf life. Okay. The masks have a shelf life. They expire, which can get costly if you're constantly rotating out that stock. Storage of that PPE is, to pay for climate controlled storage for the PPE so that it's available when you need it is a challenge as well.
Are we stockpiling in Southern Nevada?
Yeah, we are stockpiling. Some agencies are. I know here at the health district, we try to stockpile for our responders that are likely to respond in emergency. We don't necessarily stockpile for 2.3 million people.
Okay.
But we one of the strategies is to ensure that we have a workforce that is capable and able to respond. We do there, but that is the recommendation of our federal partner agencies to stockpile the most needed items that we experienced shortages in before. I suspect that in future emergencies, the challenges that we experienced during COVID, unfortunately, is going to be the challenges that we face when that happens as well. If if demand goes up super high, that everybody is looking for that same resource, then the ability and capacity of us to get and access that will be a challenge.
Interesting. Yeah, I've almost actually forgot about this, but the pictures of empty shelves, right, at your local CVS or Walgreens where there were masks and gloves and hand sanitizer. I actually, I bought hand sanitizer. Now that I'm thinking about it, man, memories are rushing back, Jeff. This is so funny. The booze companies in Las Vegas were starting to make hand sanitizer, and I got a bottle of hand sanitizer from the Las Vegas distillery.
Yes.
And I think it actually smelled a little bit like tequila.
That's perfect. Now, because we don't have a looming threat of COVID, but we don't necessarily know what the next biological emergency is going to be, it's good for us to educate the public on building a preparedness kit. Having a go bag, but building a preparedness kit, people can get even creative and say, I'm going to create a biological preparedness kit where because masks are totally accessible now, you can get them at the thing.
Okay.
Toilet paper, some of the other necessities that seem to always fly off the shelves. It's always good to create a kit where you have some of these items. Hand sanitizer. Yeah. The important thing about hand sanitizer, though, is you want to make sure that it's still efficacious, meaning that oftentimes a lot of the hand sanitizer contains alcohol. And if it's stored in your preparedness kit for a long period of time, and say it's in the garage where it's super hot during the summer months. Or
your car where it gets up to like 130 Fahrenheit.
That alcohol evaporates off, and then it really reduces the efficacy of that hand sanitizer. So rotating out your stocks that you have is always a good idea so that it's available most when you need it.
What else is in you? So you mentioned hand sanitizer, you mentioned some masks. Anything else you'd put in that preparedness kit?
In the COVID kit, simple thing. My preparedness kit has soap.
You have one. Okay.
In the absence of not having hand sanitizer, people like that, but really there's good old soap and water and frequent hand washing. In my book is better than the hand sanitizer. But I keep a lot of things that I saw during COVID that I would need again. If you search through your mind and say, hey, I went to the grocery store during COVID and I couldn't get this, it would be a good idea to have some of that on hand.
So eggs, I'm hearing put eggs in a bag and keep it in the garage. Is that right? Is that the advice, Jeff?
Don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, it could go bad the eggs can go bad in the garage there. I mean, consumables
secondary public
definitely
health
should be
right
canned.
There.
I mean, I'm always a proponent of low sodium, but like canned fruits and veggies that have a little bit of water in there too. Stockpiling water is always good. Depending on the type of emergency, if it was an earthquake that we're responding to, we might not have access to the tap at our home. So having a small amount of water on hand, generally the rule of thumb is 1 gallon of water per person per day, 2 gallons if it's during the hot summer months.
Which we have a lot of. Well, Jeff, this has been excellent advice, and thank you so much for this conversation. Keeping our fingers crossed that we won't have to use it, but really appreciate your advice nonetheless.
Hey, thank you so much.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, go tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. Don't forget, you can support this show and get some great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Take care.